What's up, guys? I think this is my first video of 2025. Kind of went ghost. 2024 was just super busy, but I finally got, majority, I believe, of the major heavy lifting done for my personal projects. And so I got a little time back to focus on my hobbies. So here I'm making a video. So this video, I want to talk about, the bond markets, and I want to talk about trade, and I don't know, whatever else is, on and popping in the world. I'm going to try my hardest to put out these videos weekly, but man, it's tough, dog. It's really, really tough, especially when, well, you know how it is. Life's busy. So, I don't know, man. I mean, just ironically, I got time now. So, we're in a very crazy, I guess you say tipping point in the market. Yeah, it's just been no surprise to anybody. There's been volatility with, the tariffs that, this administration has put into place. And then we have consequences, of those actions. And then you just have, everything with the high interest rates finally, catching up, and we're dealing with that too. So it's like a little whirlwind with everything. And I'm sure you guys have read and consumed a lot, so I'm just gonna give you guys my thoughts and opinions, and kind of try to break it down. So if you're already a pro in finance, and you're probably way above me, I'm an amateur. I follow markets, out of passion and love, and I try to consume as much as I can and try to really understand it. And I feel like if you could talk about it, then you start getting a better understanding of what's really going out there. And majority of the time, man, it's just like everything else in the world is you're just trying to connect dots and trying to make sense of things, right? But if you don't have a true deep understanding of like what the actual subject matter is, then you're never going to be able to follow it to the next step, and then the next step, and then eventually like the fourth step that's going to make you a lot of money. That's just kind of how, that's kind of how markets work, because when you step back, you realize like everything is kind of intertwined. And when you pull one lever, or twist one knob, it causes something else to go this way or that way, and that's where the money's made. But if you don't have the understanding of like, okay, if this moves, why did this move, and then if that moves, then what's moving next, type of thing, right? That's why I think continued education is really, like, really, really important. You should never try to stop learning about as many things as possible, because you would be very surprised to figure out which things correlate and what's actually connected. That all being said, let's start with the tariffs, and then that will lead us naturally into bonds, and then that will lead us into BOJ, Bank of Japan, and what I believe is a crisis that's brewing. But we've been saying that for years, so who knows, right? And I'll get into that as well. And in this video, you kind of see like the way my mind works, and as I'm talking through these things, and kind of like how I, looking to the past sometimes to kind of predict the future, even though the future hasn't happened yet. It could throw you a curveball, but you got to have some type of like ground basis as to, when you're forming your logic and your theories as to what do you think is going to happen in order to make make a play, hopefully, right? Or just be able to protect yourself, or just to know what the hell is actually going on and have an understanding, right? So you're a better educated voter, and you're a better educated citizen. Okay, enough rambling. Let's get into this thing. So first and foremost, I want to talk about like trade deficits, and, like trade in itself, what that actually means to, a micro level and a macro level, and how it really does affect mine and your life, over the course of time. First and foremost, it's like nothing that happens today is going to change tomorrow like that, right? Like change does come, gradually. You kind of see things happening, and if you don't course correct, that's when you wake up one day and you're like, oh crap, right? It's the same thing for anything in life. Like if you're chugging, 2 liters of Coke every day and eating Twinkies every day, you're not going to get fat tomorrow. But at one point, it's going to add up, and you're going to look back and be like, how the hell did I get here? And the same thing goes for, every other principle, as far as like the way governments govern, the way money flows, everything. And that being said, let's talk about the actual differences when we say, there's a deficit, a trade deficit. So basically, if you have like China that makes $1 billion worth of good, not a gazillion Tic Tacs or knickknacks or widgets, but just whatever, like a total output that they make is $1 billion, and then they send it to America, and then let's say America produces half a million or half of $1 billion, right? Like $500 million of our goods and services we give it, then we have a negative 500 billion, deficit. And you could get into even a deeper thing than that, like what's better trade for us? We're giving up this, we're freeing ourselves up for that. But the reality is it just means on the books we're taking more in than what we're giving out, and there's long-term consequences for that. Some of those long-term consequences is you kind of lose production in your own country, and you become more dependent on another country. And this happens in a lot of facets of industries. It's not just one. And the question you have to ask yourself is this what's really good for the people to subsidize cheap for long-term prosperity, right? That's like the layman's terms. But it's a deeper game than that when it gets into the geopolitical side. So we talked, China makes $1 billion worth of goods, sends it to America. America consumes it. We make $500 million worth of goods. We send it, to China. We collect dollars back. But trade deficit is 500 million or 500 billion, right? That 500 billion, once it gets into China, it gets into their banking system. And, just like, if me and you, like if, I was Chinese, you were American, I sold you something, it goes to my bank account, I pay my taxes, and that tax money goes to the government. The one step further above that is if you're a Chinese company, obviously in China manufacturing, you have to convert those dollars into yuan or RMB, local currency, to pay wages, pay taxes, and work alongside other local businesses to source and produce. So essentially all of that American dollars ends up with the CCP in a department that controls this currency. And then the CCP decides what they want to do with that money. A lot of the time, and this is one example of the geopolitical, entanglement, whatever you call it. What they do is they take that $500, billion dollars, and they buy United States treasuries, and then they put it on their books and they collect interest. And just in case you don't know, so I could kind of, really, make you understand like what the heck that actually means. So then you really understand what I mean by long-term, prosperity of our own citizens and everything, because it keeps getting deeper and deeper. When our government, Congress, Senate, Congress makes a bill, Senate makes a bill, they argue it, pass, goes to president, he signs it, boom, usually money involved, right? Spending, like they say, hey, we want to send, like $1 billion to so-and-so for aid, or we want to build a new bridge, or we want to whatever it is, right? Or the Inflation Reduction Act, I'm not going to get into the actual weed of it, but whatever, we spend money. The bill gets signed, we go over to our Treasury Department, Treasury prints that money, and then we go out to the local markets of the world, and we say, who wants to buy this paper, so we could get cash to fund what our government just wants right now, right? And China buys that paper. Our pension funds, our retirement funds in this country buy that paper. Other countries, Japan buys that paper. The European Union, the Saudis, everybody buys that paper. And, sometimes we buy some of theirs too, but they're buying American debt. So how does that work? Well, the way it works is me and you that work our asses off, when we go to pay Uncle Sam, when we pay tax, that also goes to the Treasury, right? All of our taxes collected at the end of the year, go to the Treasury. And then the Treasury sits there and it goes, okay, we collected, $1 trillion. But, guess what? We now have, $500 billion in interest because this money that we spent And China bought those treasuries, so we got to pay them first. Oh, then we got to pay a little bit to Japan. We got to go a little bit. What's left in our pocketbook? 500 billion. Okay, that 500 billion now has to fund the government. Oh, we don't have enough. We need $1 trillion to fund the government. Okay, print more. So we go back. We print. Budget gets approved. We print more, and then of course China buys it. Because, we're trade deficit with them. They got our money. They're using our own money to buy our debt. And then our taxpayers like us that send money up, that money goes to China. They keep getting stronger. And it's not just China. I'm just giving you an example of isn't that crazy? That's a little bit crazy. And to me, the root problem of everything, it's not necessarily trade. I do think it should be fair trade. I think you just slap on a reciprocal and let it be. That's my personal opinion, because ultimately the free market will, prevail. Sometimes it takes, longer than others because you have a wage gap. Someone in China making $1 an hour is, that's the world to them. That's the difference between them being able to eat rice every single day and stay alive versus, there's no way Americans could live off $1 an hour, right? So maybe we let them make the cheaper goods, we make the better goods. That gets off the topic of the trade, but really, ultimately, the weakness here is our government keeps spending. And I think we need to pound that in. It's not just trade, it's government needs to stop spending so damn much. And I think I have a workable, little math equation, very simple numbers to keep that in check. But let's get back to the trade deficit. So now you kind of have an understanding of how this whole system works, right? So just, quick recap. China, sends $1 billion, we send 500, they get 500 extra billion of our dollars. That goes into the CCP because local companies there need to convert that into Chinese currency. So it sits with the Chinese government. Chinese government goes out, buys our bonds because we keep raising the debt ceiling, we keep spending more. And our tax dollars, when they get collected, the first thing that happens is we pay interest to the Chinese on that debt. And that is the spiral. And it's known as a debt spiral because, well, it's pretty simple, right? It's like me and you, right? We have our fixed incomes. If we continue to spend more than what we make and we keep racking up, credit card debt, HELOCs, God have it, buy now, pay later for a fucking burrito. You know what I mean? If it gets to that level, eventually you get to a point where you can't pay. Eventually it gets to a point where other people think, oh, I don't think this guy can pay. And that's when you have real problems. That's essentially when, economy, collapses. And, then you have possibilities of there's not really much you could do. You got to kind of just go through the pain, or you let the government print more and you get the Weimar Republic in 1930s or 1920s, late 20s, where it just turns into hyperinflation and a freaking water bottle cost $100 because it's not worth the damn, paper that, the money's not even worth the paper that it's printed on, right? That being said, it's the ultimate, check and balance. We used to have the gold standard, which was, in the late 70s before Nixon took us off. When we started spending too much, we would, other countries would be like, hey, I don't think they're going to be able to pay. They would say, hey, send gold over, we'll reconcile, right? We got rid of that. We went to fiat, and now ever since then, it's just been, free money for everybody, or so it seems. These problems, and I've long said, if you followed me for a while, I've long said, guys, we don't have to look any further than Japan and figure out where our future is going to be. They're, about 20 years ahead of us in where we're going as far as how much they have spent and how many other accounting tricks they've done and had their central bank, buy their bonds to, kind of prop markets up and stuff. But at the end of the day, it does come to a tipping point, oh shit, we can't push any further without making this whole thing blow up. I believe Japan is there, and if they're not there right now, they're about to be, before the end of this decade. And they've never tried to really address the problem. And so for the trade side, I hope that all makes sense. You can see how that turns into be a problem. And I think the main problem is government still overspending, because that's what allows us not to keep our sovereignty. That's kind of crazy that our tax dollars are going to just serve as debt. And the more we keep spending, we're going to get to a point where our total taxes that me and you give the government is going to just pay off the debt of money we've already spent, money that me and you are probably never going to be able to see. And that's when you have a whole economy collapse and things collapse, because then where does the money come to pay for, regular services that we need and roads to be maintained and stuff? We can't, right? That's settled. Now let's go to Japan, when it happens to the extreme where you just keep printing, thinking that's going to solve things. It's crazy because, you've seen all the jokes like, why can't we just print it? It's like, because you fucking idiots, you can't just print it. Like, at the end of the day, there's real value that has to be have. And I've long had this opinion pretty much since I've turned 18 as, money is just a denomination of time. That's all it is. It's if you're earning $10 an hour and you go buy a cup of Starbucks and it costs $5, it doesn't just cost $5. That was 30 minutes of your life, and that's all money is. It's supposed to be. It's a store of wealth thing is kind of an illusion. It's a store of time, and that exact definition is correlated economically to purchasing power, right? Like, if you have this amount of money, how many goods and services can we get? And the whole system has been flawed because we have never rewarded the savers. We have never rewarded to regular people like me and you. It's always been the debtors who just take on more risk and get bailed out. And that's isolated a whole different situation. That's a whole different thing to compact. But back to Japan, essentially you could read this, you could chat GBT it. It will give you the whole freaking synopsis of step-by-step breakdowns. I'm going to give you the layman terms and try to make you I guess kind of understand it, like very basic to enough that you're like, okay, I get it. Basically, Japan has overspent in so many different ways. They have not, the federal government has always stepped in to save their markets. And it's at a point now where they can't step in anymore. And for a lot of issues, right? The war in Ukraine, putting pressure on food. Other parts of the world that are disabled, putting pressure on goods and services. The fact that the American government has to keep their yields high right now to combat inflation puts pressure. There's pressure points all over. And basically, where Japan is right now is they really can't do anything, because if they come in and try to buy up more of their own bonds, they're going to signal that, like, hey, we're weak, and it's just going to cause more problems, because trust starts being eroded, because you do look at them and say, well, goddamn, you guys have that much debt. What's the chances of you actually being able to pay us back? And then that is not good for any country, right? And so what happens is in the open auctions, by the way, same kind of style like America, go figure, because we helped rebuild them after World War II and in our image. When the government wants to raise, same thing for us here, right? Like, we want to build a new road, we want to build a whatever, and government passes the bill and we go to raise the money. It's not just a given. The Treasury prints the money and prints it on the Treasury notes, and they have to go to the market, and then the market is where China and Japan and your retirement fund, CalPERS, right? Like a pension fund goes and buys that debt. That's like open market, public, available to anybody in the world. They can buy it, right? Even me and you as private citizens can buy our debt. Same thing goes for Japan. Well, what happened is Japan's own government for a long time would come and actually start buying their own freaking bonds. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, what the hell? So you print it, then you turn around and you buy it, and then you just put it on your balance sheet. Yeah, that's only going to work for so long, because the math still equals the math, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're collecting money from the citizens and you're just paying yourself back to retire it, all that money ends up getting retired. There's not really much of a profit left. And you can only continue to print so much, because eventually it gets to the point where your own citizens can't even pay your own debt, no matter where you want to put it. You could put it in your own treasuries. You could give it to this guy or that guy or, whatever guy. But at the end of the day, if your citizens that can't pay enough of that tax and you can't pay that debt, it all falls apart regardless, right? And now Japan can't come in and continue to um, print because it's going to cause more inflation. It's going to cause because why? Because then other people are going to be like, well, we don't trust these guys, and capital leaves. A lot of other issues happen. They're boxed in a corner, so they have to let the open market decide. And the open market is saying, we're not going to give you our money for 2% or 3%. Hell no, we want more. And at the end of the day, they get to set the tone for what they ask. I mean, no one could put a gun to your head or to any other country's head and say, "Give me your money. I'm only going to give you this." That's not how it works. It's a fair trade. Japan goes out and says, "Can we borrow $100 million? We'll give everybody 3%." And everyone's like, "Fuck that! I'm paying no 3%. You better give me 5. You better give me 6. Maybe we could talk." It's no longer. They can't just turn around and give it to their own Japanese bank and be like, "Hey, 3%, haha, my man." It's fair and open. So we will see what happens. And one of the things that, one of the knock-on effects that happen there is, over the course of time, Japan has amassed $1.1 trillion of U.S. treasuries. And if they need to prop up their own currency, what they're going to do is they're going to start selling those United States treasuries, get liquid in United States dollars, keep it in their reserves to kind of offset their own currency. But what happens to us is when you start flooding the market with United States treasuries, the price of the treasury starts going down and the interest rates on that treasury starts going up. And then think about it this way: as the United States government is issuing more debt, right, and we're trying to keep it at 4% or 4.5% or whatever the rate is right now, you look over there and you're like, wait a minute, that's a United States treasury too that Japan's selling. They need money quick. They're willing to give 5.5%. Ooh, I'm going to go buy that one because it's the same thing, because the price of that went down, so it's a better deal. Therefore, it's going to yield more because Japan needs to get liquid. And your own domestic market, they're like, shit, we can't move, our debt at 4.5 if Japan's paying 5.5 for our debt. So our debt now is going to naturally have to go up to match it or maybe even beat it a little bit. Okay, why is that a problem? Because everything for consumer debt is based upon that long-term treasury. So your credit card bills, your auto bills, your buy now, pay laters is linked to that. Hell, even home mortgages are linked to that. And then we have a serious problem. That's the short-term oh shit that I see. I don't see that happening all throughout the year to the point where we're going to be in real trouble or like, oh my God, this is the end of the world, we're all going to die. No, I think 1.1 trillion, we can handle it. It will be rocky. And unlike other governments of the world, and I got a lot of stuff for posting this, but it's like, I don't care. I'm going to post my opinion. It's legitimately just me and what I think. There's nobody freaking behind me pulling the strings or anything like that. I think Fed Chair Powell did a hell of a job by sticking to his guns and keeping rates high. And the reason being is for moments like this. So when shit does get into panic mode, when things do get really, really bad and we're like, oh my God, we're gonna die, that's when we could come in, cut rates, stimulate, get back on track. And we got the ammo to do that now. We're like one of the only nations that can, right? We're one of the only nations that actually have kept their rates high enough that it's put pressure on everybody else. And what happens is you have capital flight. So what happens is everybody else in the world is looking around, like all the big players, all the big insurance firms, all the big pension funds, hell, even governments are looking around and saying, where do we park our excess capital? Well, across the world, the United States dollar is the one that's paying the most. They're stable economy and they're actually paying 4.5%. Yeah, we're going to go park it there, dog. We're going to go park it there. So all that money comes in. It makes our dollar stronger. It makes us stronger, right? And, and that also crushes, other people. And to this trade deficit, back from the original point, that's exactly what happened to China. And nobody really wants to admit it or talk about it, but it's the freaking truth, man. It's the truth. The truth of the matter is everybody needs the dollar in order to transact, bro. For better or for worse, I don't really care what your opinion is on it or what you think it's going to be. It's what's right now, what's happening right now in our lives. What's going to make our difference in our lives in the next 12, 24 to 36 months. The American dollar is king. And, everybody's going to have to bow down for now. and we're in that position of power. That doesn't mean we're not going to hurt. It doesn't mean we're not going to feel pain. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people that have actually saved money, that you're going to get good buying opportunities. And what I predict is going to happen is Japan will probably collapse into the summer or closer towards the end of the year. And that will do a knock-on effect all across. And then eventually, if it gets bad enough at home, that's when we'll step in, we'll cut rates. 6 months later, we'll balance, and you'll start seeing a climb back up. Yeah, I mean, that's what I think. But, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, this is one of the problems is you understand now what I was talking about at the beginning with the levers, right? Like, okay, Japan sells. What does that do to America? Where's the money? Where's it going? How are we going to get it, right? What's the play? The problem is sometimes you have something, and then, finance is like a black swan. I think Japan's debt crisis can't really be classified as a black swan because everybody kind of knows about it. Definition of a black swan is an event that happens that nobody foresaw, and it really fucks shit up, right? Like the housing crisis in 07, 08, 09, when the mortgage-backed securities fell. Nobody thought that they were going to fail, right? And so that makes you think, what is that black swan? I wish I was smart enough to know it. Because I'd be having this same exact conversation on like a fucking 500-foot yacht. But, now that I'm thinking out loud, it's kind of funny too that you saw Michael Berry kind of went, Estee Lauder, I think, was the only company he held. He sold everything else and he went cash. And I tend to agree. Thinking about this right now, I don't think I would be in Bitcoin. I don't think I'd be in anything that's volatile. I would just be in cash. I'd probably short the market a bit. I'd be in cash because I'm waiting for the next best opportunity. And regardless of, what that outcome is, I'm still very bullish, on America, the American spirit, our ability to innovate, our ability to hustle and just get shit done. We're going to be okay, guys. I mean, I wouldn't panic that much. Like, still get out there and innovate, still work your ass off. Things are going to be okay. But you'd be crazy not to pay attention to kind of what's going on around you and how your life could change in the next 12, 24, 36 months. Now that I'm older and, I'm doing family planning and, it's just kind of weird to think about you're going to put a human into this world and a human comes in 9 months and how much that could change your life. And that's on a micro level, think on a macro level, like if you own a business and you need funding for financing and you want to, expand or, whatever it is that you want to do, like, you got to consider all these things. You got to consider these factors. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not saying, don't do anything because that's kind of crazy. You got to still push forward, but just move with caution a little bit. Just kind of understand where we're at, what the potential dangers could be, how the world is kind of shaping and moving, and just try your best to navigate it. It's not going to be easy, right? It's not supposed to be easy. Shit, if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not. It's supposed to be hard, right? It's part of the challenge. But I hope my 28 minutes of rambling here kind of bought you some type of knowledge. And if it was all shit that you already knew and you sat through it, hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm just trying to give you my thoughts and my opinions and kind of how my brain works and, where I landed at. But, yeah, it's a very interesting time because, I haven't even, we can, start getting into the geopolitical ramifications of everything as well. That could also, dramatically, obviously impact financial markets too. I mean, you got, as crazy as this sounds, right? Like, let's just take a couple of things that happened, with Trump visiting, the Middle East, as far as the amount of money that he got pledged to come here. The fact that, the U.S. is looking into unsanctioning Syria, what that does for trade around the world and the relationships that could forge. What's going to happen with Gaza? I mean, are they going to get their own state? Is, and Israel is starting to get more, aggressive with Iran, which, hey, look, like, I don't think anybody wants another nuclear power. I think, we don't want to live in a world where it can all end just like that. I think that'd be a horrible waste of this beautiful gift given to us. But all those things matter as well. All those things are going to have impacts on markets and even bigger trends, right? Bigger trends past, this whole China deal, because right now is the time for us to try to squish them. It is, and it is, and the pivot play would be And this is why China, like, it all, just bear with me how this kind of ties in. We put the pressure on them, we get them in check. At the same time, you see a lot of companies moving away from China and moving into India because that's the next source of cheap human capital. Remember, China has a pending population collapse that's coming. China has seen prosperity for 20 years. Chinese workers that have given, 20 years of their life to get to a certain level do not want their kids to go and they don't have a dream for their kids to work at the same damn sweatshop, right? They have dreams of their kids being better than where they were. So they're not willing to work for those cheap wages again. And you see that cheap production moving towards India. And now you see China in the background being an aggressor towards India. I mean, just look at the Indian-Pakistani war. I mean, that's a whole different thing in itself, right? Like, but basically, who supplied Pakistan with weapons, with advanced weapons? It's China. Why did they do that? Well, China took our American dollars that we've been given to them for years and years and years. They bought our treasuries, and then they also took the rest of the money that they held in their bank account from, the transactions they had, and they started buying ports in Sri Lanka, buying ports in Pakistan, expanding their bases, expanding their influence. Literally what America did. And that's another implication that you're seeing, take place right now before your very eyes. And you're also seeing a power dynamic and a shift. I mean, I think India does have the capabilities of seeing the next 20 years of prosperity come. I mean, it's going to take a lot to get that country really back on the right track. But I think they have everything they need to get it done. And now they have the, like Apple moving there to move their iPhone production. That's not a small thing. And they're going to be one of hundreds and thousands of companies that are going to move production to India because it's cheaper. And that's a threat to China. Like Scott Bessick talked about, like, one of the problems that China has is they're trying to make their population a consumption based to actually make it grow like we did. But Chinese people, the fabric of them is not like that. They save 20 to 30%, if not more, of what they earn. They're not, they wouldn't go and just buy a water bottle at a convenience store and do stupid shit that Americans do. Like, I admit it's stupid, but we're American, but we love it. It's our culture. It's like, we're like, screw it, work harder, right? That mentality to go over there, it doesn't work. Sometimes I think that's a fallacy that we see in our politics when we view the world, is because we think, well, everybody should be like us. Everybody should have the same views and same ideas. And why don't you? You're retarded. And it's like, everyone has their own way of doing things, and you got to be able to be respectful of that. And it's hard to get a generational mentality to change. Now, the funny fact is, India is quite the opposite. India are spenders already. They already have a huge consumption base. I was shocked because I just assumed everybody was like my, immigrant parents from India and the savers, but it's quite the opposite. They're willing to lend. They're willing to spend. They're not as tight and controlled as their Chinese counterparts there. But as we see, as these years go on, as these months go on, as these things play out, the world is going to start shifting and changing. And I'm not even getting into the whole AI thing. I'm just giving you, like, right now what's going on, how things are shifting and changing. And so what the hell does all this information mean? It's great at a cocktail party or to have with your friends, but what does this mean for your pockets? How are you going to make money off of this, and how are you going to prepare for your future? Well, simple rules, man. I'll keep it simple. Like, right now, I'd probably be looking for ways to kind of, if I had a portfolio, definitely looking ways to hedge it. I don't think that's always a bad. That's what options were originally intended to do, was to buy puts, get some spreads open. Just make sure that if you're going down, you're not going down just sinking and you're going to be stuck. I would talk to your financial advisor about it. I would talk to somebody that you trust, that's actually more educated than I am on the matter. I mean, I'd have to look at an individual, case by case basis, see how your portfolio is structured, whatever, if you're in the markets. And if you're a business person, not paying attention to the market at all, you're out there just making that real hardcore money where you're, sweating away and trying to build something for yourself. I think you just got to be cognizant of your next, 12, 18 to 24 month capital expenditures and how you're planning on expanding or cutting back, and just understanding that things are going to get tight for everybody in this country, a little bit. a little bit. We definitely have been in a recession, but now it's a reality that it actually is a recession, and people are going to tighten their belts. So don't expect, crazy amount of growth. I would be a little bit defensive right now. I don't think this is the time to go buck wild and attack. Not yet. I think if you have capital, preserve it as much as you can, or if you're buying, a certain amount of things, price sensitivity should be at the top of your mind, because when that downturn really seeps in, that's when the biggest opportunities come. That's when you should look to expand your company. That's when you look to, create more market share. That's when you look to deploy the money you had sitting in your 401k in cash, and you're like, wow, what a deal, right? And that's going to be the scariest time, is when, things have already fallen 10, 20%, and you're like, oh my God, the end of the world, is it going to fall more? That's when you got to have some cojones, fool, and you got to go in, dog. That's when you got to go in, right? And that would be my advice, is just, be patient. Never blow your freaking load right away. Just be patient, and just kind of think it out a little bit more than what you would have, say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when debt was cheaper, money was a little bit looser, credit was a little bit looser, everything was looking great. We're playing with a different set of rules. We're playing in a different environment, and you got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to adjust. So, but hey, look, hope you found value in this video. I really enjoy talking and just, getting my thoughts and opinions out there. And it's cool when you guys DM me and say, yo, that video was dope, dog. I learned some stuff. It just feels good, right? And yeah, like I said, I enjoy this, and I'm going to try my hardest to try to make this happen once a week, but bear with me. You can stop listening here, but I'll talk a little bit about my personal stuff that I've had going on. And if you stuck around this much, then, give me another 4 minutes. But if not, thank you for your time. And, like I said, I hope you learned something. So personally, it's crazy. We started a car wash manufacturing company. It depends on how this next couple of months go. We have a lot of clients ready to place orders, but I'm seeing it firsthand where everybody is price sensitive, and it's going to move the needle on things. I spent the last 2 years getting my own personal car wash up with a bunch of limited partners, and that was a hell of an experience. And basically, we just realized, like, these car wash companies are just charging too much, and we think we could do it for cheaper. So, we spent a whole year with a couple of other partners that had over 50 years of experience, combined experience in the industry. And we just literally went part by part, line by line, every single item, and figured out how can we source it cheaper? How can we do it better? And, not to brag or like pat ourselves in the back, because we haven't done anything yet all the way, but we kind of figured it out. We kind of figured out how, we can make a very, decent, respectable profit and still come in 20 to 30% below the market. And yeah, we're excited, man. We're excited about getting it going. And I've personally put a lot of money in. My partners have personally put a lot of money in. We made it to the Las Vegas, car wash show. We've got a lot of good leads. And now we're just sitting to seeing, like, hey, was that money we spent just a waste, or is this gonna actually turn into sales and turn into a company? I'm fairly confident that it will. I'm very confident in our abilities to be able to pull this off, get this done. Slowly but surely, become a real player in the car wash, manufacturing, scene. I think we have a very, very good product. We bring a unique offering. We've worked our asses off to be able to get it to market. And, we're, 20, 30% cheaper than market, man. And we offer a better package all the way around, from, starting your, we literally help you. If you know nothing and you just have cash and you're like, okay, help me identify the land, help me build a financial model, help me get a loan, then, okay, obviously we sell you the equipment. But then after that, it's like we come in, we give you a standard operating procedure, one for your employees and then one for your management team. We help you with the marketing side. We help you, budget how you're going to grow this thing, and your daily operations, like how you're going to clean the machines, how you're going to maintain them, the back room, how to maintain that, how to attack customers and upsell, and just the whole nine. We offer all that from A to Z. We also do installs. We can also handle construction. So there's not really nothing we can't do. And we're able to do that because we're a boutique right now. We plan on selling like anywhere from 8 to 15 tunnels a year in the next 5 years. And then from there, we'll adjust and adapt as to what our real strengths are, what our weaknesses are. See if we need to, attack the weaknesses to bring them up, or just continue to just triple down on the strengths. It's fun. It's a startup. I've loved every minute of it. It's been probably the most rewarding and challenging moment of my life. It is other than me, starting a family, it's been the craziest, scariest moment of my life, because you don't know what to expect. You're all in, and you're trying your hardest to make this thing work. And it's like, to me, it's like giving birth to a whole nother kid. I'm watching this thing, literally come alive. And I'm sure you guys know, if you guys have done your own projects and your own ventures, like you probably know how hard it is, in that first year, the first 36 months, when you're trying to get something off the ground and you're like, man, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to feed my family? Did I make a mistake? You're questioning every, moment. And then you just have like certain time, like where I'm at now, where it's like, I officially, looked myself in the mirror and said, I did every single thing I could. I did it the right way. No corners cut. Neither did my partners. We put everything into it. Now it's in God's hands. It's in God's hands. Like it's out there. We have great relationships with our customers. It's up to them to make the decision. We're not going to caress or force or be salesy. Like, we gave them our best shot. We gave them everything we had to offer. And like I said, it's in God's hands, man. It's either going to come or it's not. And there's nothing we can do to control that. And if it's a mistake and we get no sales and, the company fails, then, I'm still not going to be, of course I'll be sad about it. Like, shit, dude, that's a lot of money we lost, whatever. But then sit back and it's like, where did we go wrong? What can we improve on? And, try to find something new, man. That's life. There's no freaking guarantees that, whatever you're doing, you're going to be successful in. You just got to try. You got to try. And that's half the fun. Half the fun is actually more than half the fun. I'll say like 80% of this fun is this anxiety, this hustle, this pressure, this like, this unknown, because you're working so hard to prove yourself and you're like, man, am I good enough? How are we going to make it? And it's like, it's very competitive. And as much as like it brings me down sometimes, because I have my bad days just like everybody else, on the days where things turn around, I feel like Rocky, baby. I'm like, let's go, baby. It's the best feeling in the world, right? Because it's like you're the one creating it. You're the one putting this into the world. It's your thing. And there's no one behind you, so it's like you're responsible, right? And that's one hell of a feeling, to just be able to take that ownership. Win, lose, fail, draw, whatever it is, it was you, baby. It was you, your team, your family, everyone that supported you. But it's like that feeling is special to me. That's what life is. It's creation, right? So that's why I've been MIA and just posting here and there, and I haven't had time to actually sit down and make this, because usually at this time I'd still be working. I still am. I'm still a little bit behind, but I got to a point now where it's like I need to take a little time for myself, man. And I realized that over the last year of this work and this travel, and having a family and trying to make everything work, is like, you got to take a little bit of time for yourself, man. This fucking world is going to keep spinning, dog. It's never going to stop. No matter how big your bank account it gets, it's never going to be enough. At least not guys for like us. Like, if you're still listening to this, that means you're pretty ambitious and you're trying to seek knowledge as much as you can to, get yourself to the next level. So you probably think exactly how I think. You're never going to be satisfied. And, one of my biggest fears isn't the fact that I'm going to fail. Or I'm going to fail. I shouldn't say that. One of my biggest fears isn't the fact that I could fail. The proper way to say it. Have a little confidence, baby. I am very confident we're going to succeed. I mean, I don't want to be too cocky or arrogant, but like, we're in this thing to fucking win it, dog. We're going to win it. We're going to go all in. But my fear isn't that if I fail, oh my God, end of the world. And my success isn't also, oh my God, we made it, we're hella rich now, or like, hey, we blew this up and we, whatever. It's that I'm missing the now. And it's a fucking, man, dude, it's a weird feeling that it's like, I don't want to wake up one day and just realize, like, no matter where I got to, the whole time I was just waiting to get there, but like I never enjoyed this. Like right now, like me making this video, being honest with you, putting it out there, and just enjoying this right now, like just this moment, this time, and doing what I love, because it's like I sacrificed this because like I had to get that email off, I had to get that quote fixed, I had to update this website, I had to go talk to that vendor, I should get ahead of this tomorrow. That's all going to happen. This world is going to keep spinning. All the bad things are going to happen, all the good things are going to happen. And that doesn't mean you just fucking laissez-faire, whatever. I'm saying, like, I think it's very, very important that throughout the week you take at least 1 to 2 hours minimum, at least. Maybe more, maybe less. I don't know. That's for you to decide. But just take some time in your life to just appreciate being alive, appreciate having the opportunity to work on the things that you're working on, appreciate the fact that you got friends, family that are supporting you, and just appreciate life, man. No matter what you're going through, no matter how bad it is, I mean, just appreciate it, And for me, it's like it took me a pretty long time to freaking actually realize that. And really, what hit me is watching my son grow, and when my wife is telling me stuff, and I'm like, I'm not there, and I missed it. It makes me go like, damn, I missed that, And of course, you're gonna miss moments. I'm not saying you're gonna be there for every moment, but it's like it makes you realize like it just keeps going, and the whole goal of having money and all that is to capture as many of those moments to get that time back. But don't forget, you have that time now too, and it's a balancing act of like, how much are you going to devote now to this, and how much are you going to devote to have a better future, right? Everyone has to find that balance. I would just say, don't ever let the scales tip any which way. Don't let it tip too much into the future where you're not even here. Don't let it tip too much into you're only here, and you forget totally about the future. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be losses. There's going to be pain. But there's going to be a lot of happy moments that are here, that are now. And there's going to be a lot of happy and great moments in the future that you're working so hard to build too. And to actually really realize that, to actually really bring it in, to freaking fully understand that, it's what it took for me to be able to rebalance and actually have the mental capacity to keep going. Because, we talk about the burnout, or people talk about the burnout, and it's a real thing. And I know people say there's no burnout when you're actually making it. And actually, that is kind of true, dog. When you really got 100 sales coming in, you're fucking going. But there is, right? Because just as much as your time is invested in your future into growing it, that time also needs to be invested in, the relationships that you hold dear. And it's a juggling act of like how much you could give to each one person. I love, my heart's always on my sleeve. I try to love as much as I can, but fucking one human, man. There's only 24 hours in a day, dude. I need like 8 hours of fucking sleep minimum, sometimes 9, And, then you got to have a little bit of time for, taking a shit, taking a shower, having that personal me time, and then, working out, whatever. Then you got to have your family time, and then you have your work time, right? And then squeezing in extra stuff is really hard, but you got to try to make time when you can. You got to pick and choose, when you can. I don't know, man. I hope all that shit makes sense. This is shit that's been on my head and shit that I've worked out in my own head over the year. And just, I'm going through this journey, man, just like everybody else. I just happen to have had, made a little Instagram account that allows me to fucking vent and post this. And it'd be kind of funny to look back on this, 30 years from now and be like, God damn, I was such an idiot. Like, I had it all wrong, or I don't know what I'm going to think. But, anyways, that's just been, what I've been working on. The website's called globalwashsystems.com. And, check it out, man. If you know anyone in the car wash industry, man, send them my way. And I'll make sure you're taken care of, too, with a little commission on the side, And, wish me luck, man. And ultimately, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, share it with somebody. And, I hope to catch you guys on the next one. If you want to comment what you want me to talk about next or look into, I'd be happy to take a look. Other than that, enjoy your night, enjoy your day, whatever the fuck you're doing right now, listening to this thing, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.